Good evening. All right. Good evening and welcome. Please remain standing if you were able to do so for the Star-Spangled Banner, played by the Meridian Brass Quintet and led by Samuel Brown, a music education and vocal performance student in the College of Arts and Sciences.
Oh, sing and you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. On behalf of the university, I wish to thank Samuel Brown and the Meridian Brass Quintet for their fine musical presentations. I would also like to thank the interpreters from Paraquad Deafway Interpreting Services for making the commencement program available to those who are deaf or hearing impaired. My name is Denise Cobb, and I am the Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, and I am delighted to celebrate this 2022 spring commencement with you. This evening, we will confer baccalaureate degrees on candidates from the School of Education, Health, and Human Behavior. This year, we are excited to offer in-person ceremonies. We are also live streaming this event for any graduates or guests who were not able to join us in person. We recognize how important it is to celebrate and commemorate the outstanding accomplishments of our students, and we are delighted to be able to come together safely to do so. I'm now pleased to acknowledge the members of the platform party, Chancellor's Council and Extended Chancellor's Council. These individuals are with us today to extend their congratulations to our graduates. Would all platform party and council members in attendance please stand if you are able to do so and be recognized. Thank you. Please be seated. I also wish to recognize our incredible faculty seated in section 105 to the right of me, and the outstanding staff members located throughout the facility. It is through their dedicated work in designing and executing the curricula of the university, as well as providing critical student support services, that our students have been able to achieve their educational goals, culminating in this graduation ceremony. Would all faculty and staff members in attendance today please stand if you are able to do so. Thank you. Please be seated. On March 1st, SIUE welcomed its 10th Chancellor, Dr. James T. Miner. Dr. Miner's bold leadership is propelling the university forward as he develops a collective focus on student success, enhancing faculty excellence, and engaging alumni and community partners to advance our regional impact. Unfortunately, Dr. Miner is unable to be with us in person for our spring commencement ceremonies due to COVID-19. With the health and safety of this community in mind, he is completing isolation requirements as a fully vaccinated individual. He is watching online via our live stream and has asked me to extend his deepest regrets for not being able to celebrate with you in person, as well as to extend his sincere congratulations to all of you on this momentous occasion. Along with honoring our graduates, we are pleased to confer a Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, upon Dr. Henry Roediger III. The Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters is bestowed upon individuals who have made a profound impact on SIUE in line with its mission, vision, and values. Dr. Roediger is a world-renowned cognitive scientist who has studied human learning and memory for the past 50 years. He has published more than 350 articles and chapters, co-authored 4 books, and co-edited 10 others, all focused on various aspects of remembering. After earning a bachelor's degree from Washington and Lee University in 1969, Dr. Roediger received his doctorate from Yale University in 1973. He taught at Purdue University, Rice University, and the University of Toronto before joining Washington University in St. Louis in 1996. Dr. Roediger currently serves as the James S. McDonnell Distinguished Professor of Psychology at Washington University. Given his proximity to SIUE, we have been fortunate to welcome Dr. Roediger on campus for on-campus presentations on numerous occasions. His research has been an inspiration to our students and faculty and is included in our teaching materials and other resources on the topics of learning and memory. Dr. Roediger's research is both extensive and wide-ranging. He has studied the concept of false memory, which occurs when people remember events differently from the way they happened, along with the relationship between confidence and accuracy in reports from memory, with special attention given to eyewitness testimony. Dr. Roediger's research also includes collective memory, which considers how people in groups remember and identify with their shared past, and the use of retrieval practice to aid in learning and memory. Dr. Roediger has been involved in a variety of professional organizations throughout his career, including his service as past president of the Association for Psychological Science and former chair of the governing board of the Psychonomic Society. He is a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and the National Academy of Sciences, among many others. Dr. Roediger has received numerous awards for his contributions to the field of psychology, including the John Simon Guggenheim Fellowship from the Guggenheim Foundation, the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Society of Experimental Psychology and Cognitive Science, and the Distinguished Scientific Contribution Award from the American Psychological Association. At SIUE, our work to provide students with a transformative educational experience relies on the work of scholars such as Dr. Roediger. We are pleased to honor Dr. Roediger for his impact on our students and faculty and his valuable contributions to the field of psychology. I am honored to present the 2022 Honorary Doctor of Humane Letters to Dr. Henry Roediger III. Congratulations.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Provost Cobb, for those kind remarks. And to Chancellor Minor, I hope you're feeling well. Good evening. And I'd like to welcome members of the administration, the staff, and the faculty, but especially to you graduates and your families. Thank you for the honor and privilege of speaking at this occasion. Receiving an honorary degree such as this one is the highest honor that a faculty member can receive from another university, and I'm deeply honored and appreciative of receiving this award from SIUE. I'd like to thank the Honorary Degree Committee, the Distinguished Service Committee, the Board of Trustees, and the Chancellor and the Provost, all of whom I am told had a hand in this honor. So I greatly appreciate it, and certainly it looks like I was carefully examined by all these people. Last night I had the pleasure of attending an event here on campus where the deans of the various schools presented students from their school who were receiving awards. They read the biographies of the students' accomplishments, and it was a remarkably impressive group. The students were quoted about SIUE, and they all expressed appreciation for the caring faculty, the beautiful campus, which I really appreciate too, and the great friends they've made here. As Dean Cobb noted, I've had the pleasure of visiting here fairly often to give talks, and I've enjoyed each visit. I also followed your athletic teams, at least in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I'm asked to speak briefly tonight about, well, about what? They didn't tell me about what. They did tell me about 10 minutes, so I won't exceed that. Maybe my research, but I can't really do that in 10 minutes. So let me make a few observations that will touch on learning and memory, a topic we all know well. The students here have spent the last 4 years of their lives deeply immersed in their studies. They've learned a wealth of information. And of course, for all of us, our memories form a part of who we are, a large part of our identity. Our identity is, in some ways, our memories. One reason a disease like Alzheimer's disease strikes such fear into us is that we lose our memories, and as a consequence, Alzheimer's disease takes away who we are. We lose our identity, which is frightening to us and to our families. Discussing memory is an appropriate topic at graduation because graduations are pivotal moments in life. You graduates will probably remember the events of today and this weekend for the rest of your lives, just as I can still recall my own graduation from my own college many, many years ago. A moment ago, I said the students here learned a wealth of information over the past 4 years, and what we call receiving a college education is in many ways like drinking from a fire hose. You'll never have as concentrated a period of learning again in your life, in all probability. So let me bring up a topic that I imagine has occurred to all the students here as they learned information and reported it back on essays and quizzes and tests. How much of this information will I really remember later in life? Will I really need all this stuff? These are great questions, and the answer is no one knows. I think it's a really interesting topic. I've often wondered about it as somebody who studies learning and memory, but it's very difficult to study. I will tell you today about one report bearing on this topic by a man named Robert Benchley. Benchley was an American humorist, journalist, and early actor in films. He lived 100 years ago, he died in 1945. Many years after he graduated from college, Bentley wrote an essay called What College Did to Me. First, he gave his philosophy of education, which consisted of two principles. First, no courses before 11 in the morning or after 2:30 in the afternoon, and no Saturday classes. Back in the day, there were Saturday classes. I had them my first couple of years in college. This limited his education, he says, to such courses as English 26, the social life of minor 16th century poets, Botany 2A, the history of flowers and their meaning, And Music 9, the history and appreciation of the clavichord. You can tell he went to Harvard. However, the education was well worth it because of the memories he could recollect years later. In the essay, he provided a list of pieces of information that he learned from all 4 years of college, organized by year. In his freshman year, for example, he learned, quote, Charlemagne either died or was born or did something with the Holy Roman Empire in the year 800. In a later year, he learned other important facts, such as, and again I quote, Heraclitus believed that fire was the basis of all life. The list continues on this vein for several pages. Now, Benchley's humor points up an embarrassing fact. As I said, most of us have reflected on it one time or another in studying our abstruse material. How much of this material will I really remember? What importance will it be to me? These questions do permit me to discuss a critical distinction in the study of learning and memory, that between explicit memory and implicit memory. What we mean by explicit memory is that it refers to conscious recollection, our ability to bring up and to recount events from our past. So, for example, if I ask you to recount all of the events that happened to you yesterday, you would be activating a particular type of explicit memory that we call episodic memory, remembering the episodes of your life, and you could do it quite well. Implicit memory, on the other hand, refers to the many unconscious uses of memory that we have, where past learning affects our current thoughts and behavior, but we're not necessarily conscious of the past events that are now affecting us. So think about it. When you walk, when you drive a car, or when you read, you're not conscious of using forms of memory that reflect past learning, but of course you are. Those were all skills that were initially really difficult for you to learn, even walking, as your parents can attest, but that now seem nearly automatic. I would argue that really every human activity that we're involved in one way or another, reflects learning and memory. Most of the learning we exhibit in later life reflects the forms of knowledge that we call implicit memory. So we use them without consciously thinking about where we learned them. When you drive now, you don't have to think back to the first time you were learning to drive. You just do it. So your college education is the same. To use Benchley's word, your college education has done much to you, even if you can't consciously remember it, or the events that happened. So just because you may consciously remember the facts and theories you learned in college, all this learning will affect your attitudes and your abilities and your performance. You'll perform much better later in life due to the wealth of knowledge you learned in college, and for that matter, in high school. So graduation is not just a time for making memories that will live for a long time and to think about the past. It's also a time in envisioning your futures. And that's a process that also involves using past learning as we project ourselves in the future. Many students and families may now be engaged in an exercise of looking to the future. You graduates are asking, or perhaps you have already tentatively answered, what will I do next? Sometimes your answers will not agree with your parents' wishes, and I gather this happens fairly frequently. Some of you graduates have already had these discussions, and others will have them over the summer, I'm sure. In my case, my father and mother were never quite sure why I majored in psychology in college. What could I possibly do with that? I know there's a lot of psychology graduates here tonight. However, my father seemed to believe I would come to my senses soon, and then I would go on to law school or business school after college, something practical where maybe I could make a living. But when I told him my junior year of college, I really thought I wanted to go to graduate school in psychology, he seemed a bit flummoxed. We had several long discussions. My parents were always supportive and respectful of my wishes, but I'm sure they still harbored the thought deep down that I was making a big mistake and that I should enter what they perceived as a practical profession. But finally, my father suggested a compromise. I might not want to go to business school, as he wanted for me, but if he would take out a subscription to the Wall Street Journal and in my name and send it to my address, would I promise to read a few articles every day? I'd never read the Wall Street Journal before. At any rate, I said I would. And in fact, I did read the Wall Street Journal nearly every day because I enjoyed it and learned a lot. And I still read it as time permits. The point of my story for you graduates and your families today is to work to achieve these kinds of compromises in your future. For parents, just remember it's your child's life to live and to seek happiness and satisfaction. My own son did that by majoring in theater, then went to New York and became a waiter. And for this, I paid for 4 years of college. He's now moved on to other things, happily. So for graduates, please do keep in mind that your parents were tremendously influential in getting you where you are today, and that they have much more experience and they might have really good advice for you. Remember what Mark Twain said about his father. Here's a quote. "When I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much he'd learned in 7 years." Let me leave you today to create the memories that will live with you for the rest of your life. Pause every now and again to reflect on what a marvelous ability it is to be able to remember as we all do. It's really a gift. I wish all of you graduates the very best for the future. And to you parents who are worried about what your son and daughter is going to do next year, keep in mind that subscription to the Wall Street Journal can make a fine graduation gift. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Roediger. For each commencement ceremony, one graduate is chosen to speak on behalf of the graduating class. To be selected for this honor, students must not only demonstrate academic success, but they must also exemplify the values of our institution. The graduate chosen for this ceremony is Carmen Cornejo, who is receiving a Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education. Imparting knowledge to others came naturally to Carmen. Through her long list of work and volunteer experience, it is clear she gravitates toward teaching opportunities, from mentoring first-year SIUE students through the Cougar Connector program to supporting struggling readers at a local elementary school. Carmen has a passion for improving the lives of others. Her student teaching supervisor, Dr. Barbara Martin, notes, quote, "Carmen is a very thorough, thoughtful educator who understands the importance of meeting students where they are and scaffolding individualized learning to ensure their success," end quote. As Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for her sorority, Alpha Phi, Carmen has had the opportunity to educate her peers on the importance of these topics while creating meaningful programming on various social justice issues. Carmen will no doubt carry this work into her career as an elementary educator. As Elementary Education Program Director, Dr. Natasha Flowers notes, quote, "Carmen will enact a culturally responsive pedagogy for every child while joining the ranks of teachers of color with a mission to transform what does not work in schools while leading the next generation of curious and conscious educators," end quote. Ms. Cornejo, it is my pleasure to welcome you as the student speaker representing your graduating class.
Let me raise this up a little bit. Thank you, Provost Cobb. Greetings, friends, family, faculty, alumni, and the class of 2022. It is truly an honor to be here with you today, and I'd like to take a moment to congratulate my fellow peers and to take a moment to soak it all in. All of those long nights studying at Lovejoy Library, navigating college life through a pandemic, the trials and tribulations, and avoiding the mean geese as you walk through campus. All of the obstacles that you had to overcome to this moment tonight. Congratulations. For the past few years, we have made SIUE our home. We have grown not only as a community, but also as individuals. We have not only learned more about our prospective fields, we have also learned so much about ourselves and our dreams for our futures. As some of you know, I am a first grade student teacher, and one thing that I always find fascinating is how children's dreams for their futures change so rapidly. One day they learned about space and decide they want to be an astronaut, and the next day they learn about dolphin trainers and learn about marine biology. For my little sister in preschool, she kept saying that she wanted to be a monkey. So lucky for us, dreams do change. I love how at such a young age we set these goals for ourselves and allow ourselves to dream so big. I love how we hear about someone so fascinating that we decide that we want to be just like them when we grow up. Who inspired you to dream big? A family member, a friend, a teacher, a professor? Everyone has that someone that has inspired them to continue on when things were tough. College is a formative time, and you meet so many incredible people while you are slowly figuring yourself out. You meet people who inspire you to pursue your goals, and you meet people who are strong and keep you going during challenging times. You meet people you love that help you love yourself. One of my favorite sayings that a professor told me that will forever stick with me is that you are a compilation of all of the amazing people you have met in your life. At first, it kind of went over my head, but it's so true. You take traits that you love about everyone that you meet, and they help create the you that is here today. From my mother, I learned selflessness. From my father, I learned how to work hard. From my sisters, I learned what joy is. From my best friend, I gained strength. And from my professors, I gained a passion for education. And from my peers, I gained perseverance. You are truly a compilation of all of the amazing people you have met to help create the you that is here today, who is now entering the world with a diploma and a dream. We are here today at graduation, some of us with the same dreams that we've had since first grade, and some of us who may have changed their first grade plans. Our dreams evolved, and we followed our dreams to get us here to this point. We aren't the same people who stepped foot on this campus just 4 years ago. Just as my first grade students had chained their interest, we too did that to end up here. We had teachers who inspired us to have our own classrooms one day, psychologists who helped us understand ourselves and those around us, health professionals who helped us navigate a pandemic. We all have met someone special who inspired us to pursue our goals and dreams. And now, as we are entering the various realms of our passions, we should have one goal: to be as inspirational as those who have helped us find our passions in life. Congratulations, class of 2022. We did it.
Thank you, Carmen, for your very thoughtful message, and congratulations on your achievements. The candidates for graduation will be presented by their dean for conferral of their degrees. In your program, you will see that recipients of baccalaureate degrees who are graduating cum laude, magna cum laude, and summa cum laude are noted by 1, 2, and 3 asterisks respectively. They are also wearing cords on their academic regalia indicating their honors. In addition, candidates who are honor scholars are indicated in the program with a capital H. I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge our graduates who will be commissioned as second lieutenants in the U.S. Army and Air Force. They are listed in your program. During this portion of the ceremony, I ask the audience to please be respectful of all guests celebrating this occasion by remaining seated and holding your applause until all graduates have crossed the stage. Dean Robin Hughes will now present candidates for conferral of baccalaureate degrees from the School of Education, Health, and Human Behavior.
Will the candidates for baccalaureate degrees in the School of Education, Health, and Human Behavior please rise if you are able to do so? Will all graduates receiving degrees in the School of Education, Health, and Human Behavior please come forward?
Hold on, one. We're gonna get one part in. Yeah. So you present.
This is her. Provost Cobb, on behalf of the faculty of the School of Education, Health, and Human Behavior, it is my honor to present these candidates who, subject to the completion of all requirements established by the university and the School of Education, Health, and Human Behavior, are recommended to you for the formal conferring of their respective degrees.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty and the Dean of the School of Education, Health, and Human Behavior, and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Southern Illinois University Board of Trustees, I confer on each of you the baccalaureate degree earned with all associated rights, privileges, and responsibilities. Congratulations.
And again, will all graduates receiving a degree in the School of Education, Health, and Human Behavior please come forward?
Mahogany Pickett, Bachelor of Arts, Psychology. Jordan Page Ackerman, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Mariah Therese Adams, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Olivia Lee Agnew, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Caitlin Marie Alcaraz, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Taylor Yvonne Allen, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Samantha Allstott, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. McKenna Marie Anderson, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology and Audiology. Cameron Thomas Appelt, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Kimberly Bailey, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Monica Marie Baker, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Samuel Lee Baker, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Jack Lewis Barrett, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Emily Claire Barth, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Haley Marissa Bassler, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Camila Day Bauer Higgins, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Joseph Baum, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Morgan Nicole Bell, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Corbin Lee Bender, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Sarah Christine Benz, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Brady Gerard Bergman, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Brittany Nicole Bilhartz, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Daniel Bishop, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Savannah Lee Bishop, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Lydia Lucio Blaze, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Crystal Sierra Borden, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Tiffany Marie Bowen, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Savannah Lynn Bowling, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Jacob Lewis Bradshaw, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Catherine Lynn Brandt, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Devin Michelle Lee Brand, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Jaden Nicole Brunmeyer, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Brandon Matthew Bretz, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Kayla Danielle Briddick, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Olivia Ann Buente, Bachelor of Science, Speech Pathology and Audiology, Psychology. Emily Nicole Bulla, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Kevin Bunatik, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Jasmine Nicole Cates, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Alyssa Christine Cerna, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Jesse Charpentier, Bachelor of Science, Psychology and Sociology. Taylor Wesley Chase, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Prima Jonique Chellis, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Kylie Baden Chiapelli, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Caitlin Danielle Chin, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Brianna Logan Clubb, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Gabriel Anthony Comono, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Austin Lee Connor, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Ava Noel Corbin, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Danica Jo Cottrell, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Audrey Renee Crater, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Paige Virginia Krause, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Olivia Cravens, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Ashton Crosby Cromwell, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Madeline Delcy Drea Cummins, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Bailey Michelle Cunningham, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Sophie Elise Cuppet, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology and Audiology. Alexandra Alexis Dom, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Gerardo Diamato, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology and Audiology. Margaret Deckard, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Emily Justine Decker, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Brooke Alexis Deer, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Shantae Taisha Janae Daramus, Bachelor of Science, Psychology, Sociology. Amanda Nicole Dermody, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Ashlyn Jill DeWitt, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Amanda Nicole DiNardo, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Michelle Duong, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Madeline Grace Eaton, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Macy Gabrielle Eddington, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Lauren Elizabeth Edwards, Bachelor of Science, Speech, Language, Pathology, and Audiology. Barbara Claire Ellis, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Devin Michael Ellis Martin, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Justin Leo Engler, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Rotricia Epps, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. I got you. Callie Finley, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Haley Elizabeth Fisher, Bachelor of Science, Speech, Language, Pathology, and Audiology. Morgan K. Fowler, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Brandy Frank, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Paige Alexandra Frick, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Paige Alexandra Frick, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Just want to make sure I said that right. Are we good? Jacob Alexander Fulgham, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Braden Sean Furlow, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Tyler Lane Gambrell, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Abigail Lee Gayton, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. My apologies. Alyssa Renee Gatton, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Abigail Lee Gatton, my apologies on the name. Kayleigh Ann Marie Gibbs, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Monica Denise Gilliam, Bachelor of Science, Speech, Language, Pathology, and Audiology. Barrett Helena Glass, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Sheridan Vinay Gottleman, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Kyla Nicole Golianer, Bachelor of Science, Speech, Language, Pathology, and Audiology. Goliner, dang it. Camden Michael Gomer, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Brian Gomez, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Kaylee Alyssa Goodwin, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Tyler Adam Gorbett, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Alexandra Lynn Goss, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Carly Elizabeth Gotway, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Jade Elaine Grams, Bachelor of Science, Psychology, Criminal Justice Studies. Sierra Beth Grasher, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Julia Noel Griffin, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Sabrina Marie Galil, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Jamie Lee Haas, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Margaret Catherine Louise Haas, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Daniel Philip Lee Hammond, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Erica Michelle Hampton, Bachelor of Science, Speech, Language, Pathology, and Audiology. Kendall Elizabeth Hansbrough, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Madeline Carol Hanson, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Kristen May Hardick, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Alexandra Patricia Hardy, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Zyron Harris, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Sabrina Hart, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Johanna Elena Hartig, Bachelor of Science, Nutrition. Michaela Ann Marie Harvey, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Derek Paul Hayes, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Allison Ray Hebel, Bachelor of Science, Psychology, Mass Communications. Sydney Marie Hefferly, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Ashley Abigail Highstand, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Felina Herrera, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Brittany Heron, Bachelor of Science, Nutrition. Dayton Joseph Holder, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Jaden Elise Holt, Bachelor of Science, Speech, Language, Pathology, and Audiology.
Let's go, Lexi!
Natalie Alexis Hubert, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Amaya Nashia Hudson, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Sarai Michaelan Hughes, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. I can't let him cross. William Malachi Hughes, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Dominique Renee Hunter, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Grace Abigail Hurst, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Olivia Nicole Hutchcraft, Bachelor of Science, Speech, Language, Pathology, and Audiology. We'll take a break. Back to it. Juan Carlos Infante, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Aliciana Ivy, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Ashley Nicole Jackson, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Kevin Tyler Jackson, Bachelor of Science, Nutrition. Taylor Maya Jeans, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Carly Lynn Jeffries, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Haley Lene Johnson, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Precious Johnson, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Lindsay Jones, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Megan Lorraine Jones, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Tarina Monique Joyce, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Veronica Ann Julius, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Megan Deborah Keevan, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science, Psychology. Makia Victoria Keith, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Madison Kathleen Kennedy, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Audrey Cecile Kern, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Morgan Marie Keel, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Zoe Faith Kirksey, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Kayla Nicole Klipsch, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Brianna Rose Keppel, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Seth Koronek, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Hawao Diallo, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Kiara Nicole Harshaw, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Rahema Modupeola Ayantoye, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Michaela Ann Corte, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Alyssa Rose Kostichak, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Emily Elizabeth Kowalski, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Catherine Grace Kraus, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Braden Elise Lackey, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Caitlin Marie Lamar, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Kylie Marie Lane, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Abigail Elizabeth Langley, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Madison Christine Langley, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Sarah Michelle Largent, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Abrienne Michelle Lee, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Olivia Lee, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Emily Elizabeth Lemke, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Carmen Marie Cornejo, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Lauren Nicole Leonard, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Nakira Sassandra Lewis, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Molly Lenore Linder, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Alexa Lee Loftus, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Emma Jean Lorton, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. J.C. Marie Luke, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Alexandra Elaine Mabley, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology, Audiology. Presley James Mackelberg, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Matthew McCare Marlette, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Emily Nicole McAteer, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Connor John McCarthy, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Shane Matthew McKenzie, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Ethan Levi McWhorter, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Mason Shaylin McWilliams, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Mackenzie Claire Metter, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Madison Ray Merriman, Bachelor of Science, Speech, Language, Pathology, and Audiology. Jacob William Meyer, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Varun Manoj Merchant, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Dana Deanne Merritt, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Ashlyn Nicole Mers, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Elena Jeanette Metz, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Emily Miller, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Kaylee Ann Miller, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Savannah Ashlyn Millspaw, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Abigail Marie Menace, Bachelor of Science, Psychology, Biological Sciences. Casey Ann Mitchell, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Alyssa Ann Moore, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Brianna Lynette Moore, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Addison Taylor Morgan, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Samantha Ann Moxley, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Kaylee Ann Miller, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Drew Mullinex, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Dorothy Rose Murphy, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Alexander Michael Noble, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Brittany Marie Nolan, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology and Audiology. Chloe Elizabeth North, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology and Audiology. Elena Grace Norton, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Darla Nicole Opal, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Ava Lynette Ostendorf, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Sydney Marie Owsley, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Delaney Jean Pallas, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Got it right. Paige Parmley, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Takira Parnell, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Janvi Rajesh Kumar Patel, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Shannon Lee Patterson, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Bridget Lynn Patrick, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Caitlin Mei-Ling Patterson, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Madison Renee Pilo, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Jenna Renee Pfeffer, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Michaela Hope Pipitone, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Erica Lynn Plage? Erica Lynn Plage, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Shanae Monique Powell, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Chelsea Renee Prather, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Jordan Lane Pressler, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Kaylee Marie Price, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Rihanna Marie Probst, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Hadley Rachel Pruitt, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Deidre Nicole Ratterman, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Alyssa Real, Bachelor of Science, Nutrition. Gotta take a lot of it. Last one. Olivia Robin Reed, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Vanessa Renicky, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Abby Jo Reno, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Paige Remar, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Alexa Marie Renderer, Bachelor of Science, Psychology, Early Childhood Education. Bailey Elaine Rinker, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Keely Rittenhouse, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Abby Roberts, Bachelor of Science, Nutrition. Alex Bree Roberts, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Peyton Marie Roberts, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology and Audiology. Kathleen Grace Robinson, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Madison Jalen Rodatz, Bachelor of Science, Nutrition. Bailey Marie Rolfe, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Kalanji Malik Rumpf, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Zachary Walter Runk, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Cameron Michelle Salmon, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Annalise Noel Sandoval, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology and Audiology. Kendall Alexandra Santos, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Abigail Schmidt, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Sarah Elizabeth Schmidt, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology and Audiology. Haley Anna Schrage, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Sydney Lee Schultz, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. McCall Rose Shinke, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology and Audiology. Emma Jewel Schuster, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Katie Jo Scoggins, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Brianna Seeley, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Henley Hunli Shi, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Emma Schoaf, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Gabrielle Siekman, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Alexandra Stefania Skartsis, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Abby Lynn Smith, Bachelor of Science, Special Education. Riley Timothy Sote, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Rachel Muriel Stevenson, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Kaylee Jo Stewart, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Rachel Strong, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Brendan Jeffrey Sully, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Savannah Marie Sullivan, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Justine Noel Swaim, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Taylor Christine Swank, Bachelor of Science, Nutrition. Arnell Talich, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Tejan Ayana Tailfair Harris, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Travis Lee Thier, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Aaron Thompson, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Cody Lee Timmons, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Emily Trier, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Helena Nicole Valles, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Abby Ray Veach, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Alexandra Marie Vogan, Bachelor of Science, Speech, Language, Pathology, and Audiology, Psychology. Elizabeth Irene Voiles, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Kelsey Nicole von der Linden, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Abigail Louise Walters, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Jordan Janae Washington, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Tyler Allison Washington, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Anaya Janae Wellmaker, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Kelsey Jean Wellwood, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Ashlyn Nicole West, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Destiny Marie West, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Olivia Rose Whitney, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Dasmine Lene Whitted, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Samantha Wickert, Bachelor of Science, Early Childhood Education. Madeline Joan Wiegers, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Hannah Elise Whitman, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology and Audiology. Hannah Elizabeth Wood, Bachelor of Science, Speech Language Pathology and Audiology. Maya J. Woodard, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Carson Tyler Woodfin, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Talia Elizabeth Woodson, Bachelor of Science, Exercise Science. Jamie Kelly Wright, Bachelor of Science, Public Health. Meg Leanne Wyatt, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Clara Catherine Zabarak, Bachelor of Science, Elementary Education. Jingshen Hazel Zhang, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Brooke Michelle Zilke, Bachelor of Science, Psychology. Last one. Tyler Zobrist, Bachelor of Science, Psychology.
Thank you to Dr. Derek Houston for reading the graduates' names. Would all of our graduates please rise if you are able to do so? In recognition of the degrees bestowed upon you, you may now move the tassel from right to left. At this point, I ask our graduates to turn to face the audience. There you go. On behalf of the faculty, and staff of the School of Education, Health, and Human Behavior, I am honored to present the graduating class of Spring 2022. Okay, graduates, this is important. Please take a minute to show your appreciation for the support of your family and friends with a round of applause. Okay, please turn to the podium once again and be seated. I promise we'll applaud one more time. Now, on behalf of the SIUE Alumni Association Board of Directors, I officially welcome you to the Alumni Association. Please direct your attention to the screens for a short video from the Alumni Association.
My, how far we've come. You made it. All that work, the discoveries, the inside jokes you could never explain, the hard-earned grades, the halcyon days. Hold on tight to this feeling, this place, your friends. Many things will change over the next few years. The possibilities that lay ahead in your future are so bright, it can all seem overwhelming. But we've got you covered. You are about to join more than 112,000 SIUE alumni who have leveraged their SIUE education and experiences. And you'll be a lifetime member. No dues, no fees. All you have to do is stay connected. Long after this ceremony, stay connected. Be involved. You are now a part of the history of this amazing university, and you will always be welcome here.
Honored guests, let's give our graduates one final round of applause. We will conclude commencement by singing the first verse of the SIUE alma mater, played by the Meridian Brass Quintet and led by Samuel Brown. The lyrics are printed in the back of your program. Following the alma mater, please be seated until the platform party, faculty, and graduates have left the seating area. Graduates will meet their guests outside of the East Lobby. Best wishes to all of our graduates, and thank you to all of our guests for joining us for this special occasion. We hope you will return home and visit us often. Now please rise if you are able to do so for the alma mater.
Mississippi plain, your splendor Thank you.